Boom. Hello, hello. Good, okay. Welcome back to Unchanged. Tonight, we are at night number 5. Yes, as we said in the beginning, we will have 10 nights in this journey to Unchained. And tonight is number 5. And so welcome, and we're glad that we're here. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight, we're going to learn another breakthrough, right, to be unchained. Another breakthrough to be unchained. And the title for that message will be Breaking the Chain of Fear. But before that, we want to make sure that everybody register like we tell you every night. So please go to the website www.unchainedevent.org Albany/register. You see it in your screen over there, unchainedevent.org/Albany/register. Please go over there and register. They're going to ask you for information. But remember, that information, if you don't know, that will be confidential, only used for this series. So please go over there and follow what they're asking you for. When you fill it out and register, you're going to receive an email and a text, right? In the text or the email, you're going to have a link. Hit in that link, and you will enter into the program, okay? Also, please, by you registering, you will enter into a draw about to receive a giveaway book that we are giving every night. So please register. And also, with that email or text, you will receive it daily. You will receive a daily reminder that for the evening program. We want you to register. It only be one time, but every time you receive the link, hit it, touching it, because you enter into the draw for the book. And also, we know who's watching that evening program. We want to get to know you. We need to know who you are and how many people are watching. So please, when you register, remember, okay, evening program. Hit that link over there, and when you hit it, you will enter into the draw for the book giveaway. And also, we know you are watching. The book giveaway is a book signed by our speaker, Richie Halversen, entitled Darkness Will Not Overcome. It's a great book, and you will receive it if your name are called, and we're going to contact you directly to get to know how we get the book to you. So again, please register. Also, I don't know if you're watching from Facebook or from YouTube, hit the link and then share. Hit the button, share. Please, we want you to be an evangelist, right? Let the Spirit use you and share that button, because we all have somebody that had an issue or addiction, or we know somebody that knows somebody that has an issue with addiction. So we want to get this message out. That's what we do in this program. A lot of people need it. So please hit that button, share button, so we can let other people know about how God can deliver them and unchain from the chain of addiction. Okay, also, we want to know where you're watching us from. Last night we had somebody in Facebook that was watching from Washington. Last night we had somebody in YouTube that was watching from Florida. So we want to know where you're watching us from. So please put in the chat over there. I'm watching you guys from, so whatever you are, we want to know that. So thank you for tuning in tonight. And again, the website is unchainedevent.org/Albany register. Please go there and register, and also share that with somebody so they can also register. And while you're out there, register in our channel, YouTube channel, and become a friend of our Facebook page. We would like to contact you. We would like to interact with you and to get to know you. So please do that. Register. Hit the link every day you receive it. You should receive it today if you're already registered. If you're not, you should go back and do it, and then you will receive the link. Every night we're planning to share and also to let people know about God's power. And sometimes we will have an interview that we already have, right? People that can share the testimony and how God unchained them, right? Get them out of boundary and chained. God is powerful enough to do that. And because the first night we have technical difficulties, instead of the interview, we're going to have Richie Halversen's story again, because that is a powerful testimony. That is the purpose of the interview, to let you know if you're suffering any addiction, that God can give you freedom and unchain you from that. So Richie Halversen will give us a story today again. I know some people haven't watched it, and if you did the first night, it was like something wrong with it. So we want to make sure that you hear it clear and that his testimony get to you. So let's do that now, and then and then you're going to hear the message from Richie Halversen on breaking the chain of fear. Let's pray that God use his testimony and his message again, so we can understand how powerful our God is and how we can surrender to him to be unchained. So enjoy the story and also the message.
So it's no looking back for me. It's cool to be in this same spot. Last time I was here, man, I was tore up from the floor up, completely chained to every addiction you can imagine. And it's cool to come back here, to be unchained today. Hey, my name is Richie Halversen. I'm a pastor, speaker, but my real passion is to help people overcome addiction and find a new way of life. It's kind of crazy, but the last time that I was here in this spot, I was jobless. I had just been kicked out of the halfway house where I was living because I had stolen from the halfway house manager because I was in active addiction using. My wife couldn't let me home. She wanted to let me home, but she couldn't let me home because she couldn't trust me there either. No one was safe. You know, that's the problem with addiction, is it infects and affects everybody in the family. It hurts everybody. It affects everybody's peace of mind and their ability to enjoy life. And so I was literally at my bitter end, that bottom you hear them talk about in addiction. I was there. I was living out of my car just down at the bottom of this hill. And I remember the night before I went to treatment for the last time, I came up here. And I remember it was nighttime. It was just absolutely clear, crystal. I could see Nashville just clearly from here. I had come here so many times in my active addiction. I basically came to this threshold where I made the decision, okay, either I'm going to die or I'm going to give this thing one more try. Images of my children kept going through my head. Images of my wife and my family. Images of the person that I used to be. And that's the problem with addiction. We become someone else. I wasn't the same person that I was before. It completely changed me inside and out. We live to use and we use to live. Addiction had reduced me to this point of just near survival. I didn't care about nutrition and eating. I was 50 pounds underweight, begging for money, doing the very things that I never would have thought in a million years that I would be doing. That's what addiction brought me to that place. And so on that night, I was here. It was actually Christmas Eve that I came up here. I spent that Christmas Eve alone. I remember I started talking to God again for the first time. At this point in my life, I didn't even really know if I believed in God. I had grown up in a Christian home. My father was a pastor. I grew up in a loving family. You know, addicts don't just come from broken homes or bad areas or bad neighborhoods. Addiction comes from everywhere. It affects everybody. Getting to this point where I came up here, it was the Christmas Eve, and it really just hit home where my addiction had brought me, what it had stolen from me, all the things that were missing in my life, joy, peace of mind. You know, that's what's crazy is I went to the drugs for joy and peace of mind, but that's the irony of addiction. It steals the things that you went to it for in the beginning. And now I didn't have any freedom. I didn't have any joy. I didn't have any peace. I was completely broken. And so sitting here, I started talking to God and started saying, you know what, if you are there, I need your help. I'm completely fed up with this way of life. I can't do this anymore. I'm hurting from the inside out, and I need help. And so I came up here and had a conversation with God for the first time in a long time. I didn't even know at this point God was even there, or if there really was a God. And so I started praying up here on Lover Circle. Started talking to God for the first time in a very long time. Said, man, if you're there, I need help. I can't do this. I completely felt worthless and hopeless and helpless. But something spoke to my heart and told me, don't give up. Don't give up yet. In recovery, we have a saying, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. And so I was at this point and I heard that don't give up, and I made the decision that evening right here in this spot looking over the city to go to treatment one last time. And that's what I did. The very next morning I got, my parents sent me tickets. I got on a plane and I went to treatment. I grew up in a pretty religious home and had a pretty good family upbringing, and parents who loved me, and two sisters that were never getting into trouble, and then I came along, and in high school I started getting in with kind of the wrong group of people that were kind of going in the wrong direction, and my story is pretty much that generic story. In the beginning, using was fun, it was the party. But then it got bad, and it got to where I was using every day, all the time. Opioids just almost devastated my life, and I couldn't go to enough doctors to get the amount of prescriptions and drugs that I needed. And so I started calling in my own prescriptions, impersonating a doctor and calling them in. And I got away with it for a long time, but you may get away with it for a while, but eventually you're going to get caught. And eventually I did. I would impersonate the doctor and call in those prescriptions. And one time I was at a pharmacy not far from here and had called in a prescription, and I'm walking in the store to get it, go to the pharmacy, they're on to me. I know they're on to me. I get ready to leave, and as I'm coming out of the store, about 5 squad cars pull up in front of the store, and they arrest me there on the spot. Now you would have thought that was enough to kind of wake me up from this, but the reality is it takes more than that. It took me getting arrested about 4 or 5 more times. It took 4 or 5 more felonies. It took 4 more times in jail before I was even at that breaking point. Called my parents, was expecting them to bail me out of jail, but instead of them bailing me out, I got a little note the guard gave me from my mom, and she said, "Richie, we're not bailing you out anymore. We're done. And we love you. We're praying for you, but we're not doing this anymore." And that was the moment when I started realizing I had to make a change. That was when reality started hitting in. That was the first step towards me hitting my bottom. So don't enable people. Love them from a distance. Give them that tough love, all right? But don't enable them. In recovery, we call it, you can love your family to death. We have seen addicts die because their family just could not get out of their way. They kept throwing money and enabling bad behavior. Don't do that. Have boundaries, but always be there so that when they're ready to get help, you're ready there to help them from a distance. You're not going to do it for them, but you're going to help them. In the Nashville City Courthouse, that I was facing 4 pending felony charges for prescription fraud. I had 30 days clean, just got done with treatment, had my first court hearing clean, and showed up. I had missed my court while I was in treatment, so there was a warrant for my arrest for failure to appear. They immediately arrested me, took me into custody, and I thought I was going to be going away for a very long time. But by this time in my life, I had surrendered to a power greater than myself, and I was willing and ready to deal with the wreckage of my past, and I was ready for healing. I was ready for restitution. I was ready to deal with the things that I had done and face up to it. It felt so much better going into court clean than using. And so when I went before the judge, they had me drug test. I was clean. I had just finished treatment. That was good. And unbelievably, that day, I was able to leave. That the conclusion, if I remain clean, I don't get trouble again. They were going to expunge all 4 of these felony charges off my record. And so, man, I had been told multiple times that I was going to have to do some serious time, but God had other plans. And so, man, I left that day from the courthouse, and the air smelled a little sweeter. The sun, man, it shined a little brighter. And I still remember the way it felt to that day of one of the benefits of living a life clean and in the process of recovery. And so I did exactly that, man. I did everything that they told me to do. If they had told me to stand on my head, I would have stand on my head, because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I started going to meetings. I started working the steps. I got a sponsor. I got someone who knew how to live clean. I didn't know how to live clean. I knew how to get high. I knew how to con and manipulate and steal, but I didn't know how to live successfully clean. And so I got a sponsor who did, and I started listening to him. They told me to take the cotton out of my ears and shove it in my mouth, to do more listening than talking. And that's what I started doing. And day by day, each day, I started living a cleaner, freer, happier life. My marriage was holding on by a thread. But my wife, she let me come back home. We reconciled our relationship. It took time. Trust that was damaged over years doesn't heal overnight. So it took time for me to heal that relationship. And you know what? Sometimes a lot of people in recovery, their marriage doesn't heal. Unfortunately, lots of times the relationship doesn't last. I was fortunate that my relationship did. Now my wife and I, we've been married for 22 years. So far we've seen, to live an unchained life, we need to break through the denial with honesty. We've got to break through unbelief with hope and belief. We have to break through the insanity with faith and willingness. And now we're going to look at the importance of breaking through the fear with courage. There is an acronym for the word fear. Forget everything and run, or face everything and recover. Everybody has that choice right now. We either allow the fear to forget everything and run away, or face everything and recover. Nothing keeps us chained to addiction and dysfunction like fear. In every of the Gospels, there is a story that is recorded, several scenes, in fact, of the disciples on the Sea of Galilee in a storm, and they're always scared to death. Matthew, the 14th chapter, verse 24, it says, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. Have you been fighting heavy waves this last week, this last year? You are not alone. You see, living an unchained life doesn't mean no storms. It just means that we no longer have to go through the storms alone. 3 points we're going to learn today that can break through our fear. 1, God speaks to the storm that you are in. He speaks to you in the storm, and God speaks to the storm that is in you. All right? Nothing more than that. The voice in the storm can give you courage to make it through your storm. First, let's look at He speaks to the storm you are in. In Luke 8:22, it says, one day He got into a boat with His disciples, and He said to them, let us go across to the other side of the lake. And so they set out. Jesus wants to take you to the other side. He wants to take you from your current situation, your current problem, to the other side. He wants to take you to that next place of freedom and peace. But the only way He can do that is if you're willing to let go of the safety of the seashore. You may feel safer docked at the harbor, but the last time I checked, boats were made for sailing. Man, life was made for living. God made you for something more than being chained to something. And for too long, we've allowed fear to keep us locked up and landlocked and keeping us from going where God wants to take us. Listen to me. If God tells you to go over, you can never go under. Luke 8:23, as they sailed and fell asleep, and a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. The Sea of Galilee is still known for storms that will show up suddenly, going from smooth and sunny to rough and stormy. You know what? That sounds a lot like life, doesn't it? The bad diagnosis, the affair that you found out about, the arrest, the lost job, the lost home, panic attack, depression. In an instant, our world gets turned upside down and we desperately try to hold it together, but we can't. We're just like these disciples. We're trying to stay afloat, but we're taking on too much water in our boat. And so they went, in Luke 8:24, they went and woke him saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. I can't. He can. I think I'll let him. And so they wake Jesus up. Luke 8:24, and he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was calm. Friends, it is safer in the storm with God than to stay on the shore without Him. To live a more fulfilling life, it is better to go through the storm with God than to stay on the shore alone. Mark 4:39 records Jesus saying, "Peace, be still." But when you look at what it actually says there, Jesus was telling the storm to shut up. You see, when Jesus speaks up,
the storm shuts up. Mark 4:39, it says that the wind ceased and there was a great calm. God wants you to experience great calm, great courage, a great life, not just any life. The next time a storm shows up, ask God to tell it to shut up. The depression, the bad mood, the addiction, the bill collectors. You know, after I got clean, the wreckage from my stormy addiction had left all kinds of damage. And it got so overwhelming. Man, I had a stack of bills that started piling up on the counter in my kitchen. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like these disciples. And so I went to my sponsor and I told him about it. I said, man, I'm getting overwhelmed with these bills that I'm going to have to pay. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, Richie, you do what you can and you give the rest to God and He'll do what He can. And if seeing the bills is overwhelming, Richie, just throw them away. Don't worry, they'll send you another one next month. And that's what I did, man. I just threw them away. And hey, they did, right on time, sent me another bill next month. And I just worked on one bill at a time, until, hallelujah, man, I paid all those bills off. You need to know, friends, that you have a power in your corner that is bigger than your problems. Let Him speak to the storm you are in right now. Don't let the fear overwhelm you. Let Him speak to the storm. Let Him tell your storm to shut up, and it'll listen up. Second point, to have courage, is God speaks to you in the storm. So He speaks to the storm you are in, and now He speaks to you in the storm. We have the same disciples. They're on the same body of water, only this time Jesus sends them on by themselves. They think that they're all alone. It says, when evening came, the boat was out on the sea. Jesus was alone on the land. Now, according to Matthew and John, Jesus goes into the mountain to pray when He sends the disciples on. So from the disciples' perspective, Jesus is nowhere around. But check it out. In verse 48 of Mark, it says, He saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against Him. You see, just because you can't see God doesn't mean God can't see you. From the disciples' perspective, they were alone. But from God's perspective, He had never taken His eyes off the disciples. You see, God sees when the storms in your life get rough, and that's when He shows up. According to verse 48, the reason making headway was painful is because the wind was against Him. Sometimes life, the wind is against you. It feels like the whole world is out to get you. John tells us in his gospel that the disciples have to start rowing. Listen to me. When the wind starts working against you, taking you in a direction you know you don't want to go, that's your cue to start rowing too. When it's not as easy to go to meetings as it once was, that's your cue to start rowing. When it's harder to keep praying, you don't feel like your prayers are making it past the ceiling, man, that's your cue to start praying. The harder things get, the more we need to be rowing. When someone invites you to drinks after work, don't go with them. Don't go with the flow. You got to start rowing. When old behaviors start returning, that's your cue to start rowing. You know, sometimes recovery comes to us easy. There's certain things that are like, hey, this is great. I love it. You know, a lot of people would come up to me, you know, they had 30 days clean. They're like, I love life. I want to hear you say that after 10 years clean. You know, sometimes life is easy. Sometimes it isn't. Other times it's like the wind is against us. And that's when you've got to start rowing. We are responsible for our own life. You are responsible, so start rowing. We are a product of our own decisions. Start rowing. Recovery is hard work. Breaking chains isn't easy, but let me tell you, it's worth it. What are you waiting for? It's time to start rowing. Don't let the unexpected problems and fears of life keep you from living an unchained life. When the going gets tough, the tough get rowing. You do what you can, and then let God do what He can. Mark 6:48, it says that it was about the fourth watch of the night, and He came to them walking on the sea. So check this out. The waves are crashing, but Jesus is strolling. You need to know that when the storm is crazy, God is not crazy. When the world seems out of control, God is not out of control. Mark 6:49-50, it says, "But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, 'Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid.'" Check it out. Jesus speaks to you in the storm. What does he say? His words are, "Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here." The spiritual principle that breaks through the chain of fear is courage. Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here. You don't know how you're ever going to get clean? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You don't know how you're ever going to be able to salvage your marriage? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You don't know how you're going to pay that rent? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You see, he speaks to you in the storm. Matthew 14:28 says, "And Peter answered him, 'Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water.'" You see, Peter's being tossed back and forth on the boat, but he sees Jesus walking on the waves. You see, Peter wants to do to the waves what Jesus is doing. Peter wants to walk on his storm like Jesus is walking on this storm. And check it out. Jesus speaks to him and he says, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water and he came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. Fear never completely goes away. It always can show up at unexpected times and unexpected places. When he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." You see, when Peter stopped focusing on his goal and he started focusing on his problem, when he started taking his eyes off of his goal and he started focusing on his opposition, that's when he started sinking. Keep your eyes off the problem and get them on the solution. Take your eyes off what's going wrong with your life and focus on what's going right with your life. You see, courage is not the absence of fear. It's walking through the fear. So it doesn't mean that the fear goes away. It's just you keep moving forward in spite of the fear. You know, people often kind of look down at Peter when he sinks. You know, they're just like, "Oh, there that Peter goes again." But you know what? At least Peter got out of the boat. You know, the Bible doesn't say how many steps Peter took on the water, but the Bible does say Peter walked on the water. I don't see the Bible saying that about anyone else. You see, there are those who would like to criticize Peter for sinking, but they never started walking. There are those who will criticize you for your recovery. They will criticize you for your belief. They're going to criticize you for your faith. They're going to criticize you for trying to live a life unchained. But listen, they were too scared to get out of the boat. And so to take the attention off of them, they're just going to sit there and criticize you. When the haters start hating, that's your cue to keep walking. You know what? I may not have walked as much as I would have liked to have walked, but at least I walked a little. You haven't walked at all. And you know what? It actually never says that Peter sank. In Matthew 14:30, it says, "Beginning to sink, he cried out." There is a big difference between almost sinking and being sunk. There's a big difference between almost using and using. There's a big difference between almost cheating and cheating. So the moment you start sinking, do what Peter did. He cried out, "Lord, save me." When you start craving, cry out, "God, save me." When you start wanting to use, call your sponsor and say, "Save me." When you want to start spending, don't wait until you're in the mall to say, "Lord, save me." Say, "Lord, save me," when you're getting into your car to drive to the mall. When you start resenting, cry out, "Lord, save me." Shout, "Save me," the second you start sinking. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And I love it. Matthew 14:31 says Jesus immediately. You see, when we call out to God, help always comes. Not always the way we want it to come, but always the way we need it to come. Matthew 14:31 saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, what's interesting about this is when you read the actual Greek, the phrase "to him" is not there. Now, I'm sure the translators, they're a lot smarter than I am, and they probably know what they're doing when they say that Jesus is directing this at Peter. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, Jesus wasn't talking to Peter. In my kind of cynical mind, I envision Jesus as he's reaching down to help Peter, who actually did walk on the water. He's actually looking at the other 11 still sitting on the boat. Oh, you of little faith. I mean, at least Peter got out of the boat and walked a little. Friends, it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. I have never met anyone who regretted attempting something courageous, even when they failed at it. The greatest regret people have in life is that they never tried at all. You see, it's usually from our failures that we learn. Often we look down at failures, like failures are so terrible. We demonize failures. Let me tell you, failure isn't fun, but failure is absolutely necessary, because it's usually from our failures that we learn what to do next time. It's usually from our failures that we learn, you know what, I can't take my eyes off Jesus. Jesus speaks to the storm you are in. He speaks to you in the storm. Last point, to give you unbelievable courage to break the chain of fear, is Jesus speaks to the storm that is in you. You know what? The worst storms I have ever faced in my life are the storms that are on the inside. The worst storms you will ever face are the ones. We are our own worst enemies. Nobody can kick us like we can kick ourselves. Let me tell you, your addiction will never stop coming at you. Your pride will never stop trying to get back in there. Your control problem will never stop coming at you. I often hear people in recovery say, you know what, my disease is outside these rooms doing push-ups, waiting, just waiting for when I'll let down my guard. Addiction will come at you with everything that it's got. The enemy will come at you when you least expect it, trying to overwhelm you with fear. He'll try to rob you of perspective. Man, in 1 John 3:20, it says our own heart condemns us. You know what? We can't always trust our feelings. Often our own feelings work against us. Suddenly, our perspective is messed up. Fear starts taking over our lives. New healthy habits are replaced by old unhealthy ones. New attitudes quickly replaced by old familiar ones. And suddenly we realize addiction is trying to drown you. And that's when you need to listen to God's voice speaking to the storm that is in you. Isaiah 59:19, it says that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. In ancient times, a standard was a flag, and it was actually used to communicate during a battle. It communicated this basic message: your king is alive, keep marching, we're still fighting, move forward, and victory will be ours. In the storms of life, when the enemy comes in like a flood, I want you to remember your standard. The standard of the cross and an empty tomb. You see, the empty tomb, the resurrection is a promise that your worst day is never your last day. Our standard communicates the king is alive, keep marching, keep fighting. Victory is ours because victory was his. You see, the only storm that could have ever really destroyed you, Jesus let kill him on Calvary. Which means no matter how rough the storms in your life get, one thing's for sure, it cannot destroy you forever. Stop letting the chain of fear keep you from leaving the shore. No matter how bad the storm is, it is better on the other side with Jesus. No matter how rough the storm gets, remember the voice in the storm to have courage to push through the fear. Psalms 93:4 says, mightier than the raging of the seas, mightier than the breakers on the shore, the Lord above is mightier than all of these.
Welcome back. What a wonderful message. Richie, thank you. Thank you, because I think everybody needed to hear how to break through the chains of fear. I love the acronym of fear, but I really take the courage part. You know, courage is not something to take fear away. It's to get us to move and do what we need to do through the fear. And I love the illustration he makes in the story about Peter, how he was afraid to drown and took the eyes from Jesus, right? Great message tonight. Tomorrow night, we are going to have another powerful message. So please, if you haven't registered, you need to register. Go to the website on your screen, Unchanged event, if that's what you want to write down, .org/Albany/register, unchainedevent.org/Albany/register. Register, please. You will receive the daily reminder. You will receive the link to the program. Please register, because we have a giveaway every night, and we will not be able to enter if you don't register. So if you're interested in the book, Darkness Will Not Overcome by Pastor Richie, you need to enter and register, okay? That's a great book. In a lot of people, you might not need it if you are winning, but you can give it to somebody. Your name might be called, but you can give it to somebody if you don't need it. All right, but I think we all need it, because we all go through some type of addiction, some type of chain, and God needs to break us through and give us the experience on chain. So register, okay, and share the link, share the message. The good thing about what we're doing is that message is still there on Facebook and YouTube. As you know, you can still watch it and share it. Please let God use you and share the link. The book today is going to Achmir Kopernik. Achmir, we're going to contact you and get you the book. And please, again, register. It will be great for you to do that. You will be blessed. Tomorrow night, we get back to Unchained again, live at 7 p.m. Please, if you haven't registered again, do that, and you will receive the reminder tomorrow about 6:45 that it will tell you to hit the link and also enter the draw for the book and the program. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a great night. Has been a wonderful night, wonderful and powerful message. And tomorrow we will hear from Richie again, or from God through Richie again, how to unchain, how to break through the chains of our addiction. God bless you. Have a good night.